My name is TheAdipose and this is Doctor Who Legacy. In this video I'm going to be giving you an advanced tutorials of how to use all of these lovely characters in the game. Okay, well ladies and gentlemen, this is now my fourth proper tutorial for Doctor Who Legacy. I've done about 10 videos overall, but I did basic gems, basic characters, advanced gems, and now I'm here on advanced characters. If you haven't seen those earlier videos, or you would consider yourself a beginner, I would strongly suggest you head back over to my channel, check out the Doctor Who Legacy playlist, and go and watch them. But if you feel you're ready for the next step to talk about character usage, team selection, and more, then do stick with me, and hopefully I'll share with you a tip or two that will help you take down those Daleks. Okay, well many people when they play Doctor Who Legacy think that it's important to have at least one character of every single colour on their team. And of course by colour we're not talking race here, or we're not talking about a plea for African Americans and Asians. We're talking about the colour that goes with the gem colour that each one uses. So for example here, Sylvester McCoy Doctor is clearly green, River's red, Amy's yellow, etc, etc. And many people think that it's good to have a nice balanced team of one of every colour. And there's a lot of advantages to that, but what I'd like to suggest in my first tip is that you try and coordinate the dominant colours of your team to the dominant weaknesses of each particular level. Now hopefully you've discovered, if you watch my fingers here, that as you click along the top of each enemy that's in front of you, you can highlight each one, and more importantly than that, you can see that particular enemy's strengths and weaknesses, if they have one. If I just highlight that that blue little angel cherub there, you'll see that on the characters that there's some green arrows that point up on Sylvester, and there's some red arrows that point down on River. That means that this particular enemy here is more vulnerable to green and less vulnerable to red. In fact, double damage from green, half the damage from red. And if we click along to the next one, we can see that this one is vulnerable to yellow damage, but there's nothing that does less damage. And the same with this one, we can see that it's more vulnerable to black if you look carefully at the last character there. Now this is nothing to do with actually which enemy it is, and it's got nothing to do with what colour the enemy is itself. Like, you know how you get like yellow Daleks and green Daleks and red Daleks and all that kind of thing. It has entirely to do with the colour of that enemy's health bar. And if you look at the three in front of them, you can see we've got a blue enemy on the left, a black enemy in the middle, and a yellow enemy on the right. And I think sometimes people get a bit confused in my videos because I've talked about the red Dalek or the blue Dalek, and actually the Dalek that's physically in front of you is yellow. But what's important is the health bar colour, because if I click on that first one again, anything that has a blue health bar, anything, is vulnerable to green and less vulnerable to red. Anything that has a black health bar is more vulnerable to yellow, and so on. So it's not like a black health bar on one level means one thing and a black health bar on another level means something else. That you can make a judgment that if you see an enemy with a certain health bar, it's going to be vulnerable to certain things. So what you can do if we come out of this particular level is to start to think, well, what shall I take to certain levels? Now let me give you an example. Now this is a level I've played over and over, and if you've watched my live streams you'll know I've done it over and over because I was trying to unlock Mr. Williams. If we go into the Dinosaurs on a Spaceship Run level, almost everything in this particular level is red, and red health bars are vulnerable to blue. So therefore, when you come to a level like this, why don't you bring a team which has a lot more blue characters in it? Have a look at the top, click the top left, vulnerable to blue, click the top right, vulnerable to blue, and so by having a team that actually set out to my strengths and my enemy's weaknesses, I'm far more likely to be able to take down huge amounts of characters or huge amounts of enemies in single turns. And if you watch here, I'm going to have 4 characters attacking at the same time, and they're all going to be doing double damage, and therefore it's quite easy to kind of wipe out an entire layer. But I know what you're saying. You're thinking, well, how can I know a level before I go in it? How can I know what colours to bring with me? Well, the first thing I would say is sometimes a level's going to take you more than one attempt, and if you're getting stuck on a level, why don't you jot down what kind of health bars you've got in front of you, and then set up a team particularly for that level. But there is one way you can kind of have a little look in advance, and that's by looking at the colours of the drops that come in that level. So for example, if we look at that Fists of I can't pronounce this, Arnicleton level, you'll see that there's a blue egg timer drop and there's a green swirly hoopy ring thing drop. That tells you the drops, but it also tells you that in that level you will definitely have a blue enemy, you'll definitely have a green enemy. You'll probably have other enemies as well, but if you're kind of looking to take a bit of a guess in advance, that's not a bad place to start. Now you can use, and I think it was one of the guys on the forums giving this idea, I thought it was absolutely brilliant, that you can use the old log fire water thing to remember what beats what. If you've got a blue enemy, if we just head into a level to give you an example, if you've got a blue enemy, then blue is vulnerable to green because a green tree floats on a blue water. If you've got a green enemy, then they're vulnerable to red because red fire beats a green tree. And if you've got a red enemy, like we've got right in front of you here, a red enemy is vulnerable to a blue enemy because water beats fire. So blue beats red, water beats fire, fire beats tree, tree beats water, and water beats fire, and so on and so on and so on. And yellow and black are just kind of opposites. Black beats yellow and yellow beats black, and there's no kind of weaknesses in there as well. So that's an easy way of kind of remembering it, and you can just use those colours to give you a little heads up as to what you might bring in that particular level to do more damage and hopefully get past some of the trickier bad guys by bringing your strengths to their weaknesses. Now, directly linked to that idea of colour specialties, I do hope that you have spotted in the team selection page that you don't just have one team. You've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the top. I'm sure most of you have spotted that, but just in case you haven't, as you click across on those buttons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can have different preset teams. And obviously, it'd be nice to have more, to be honest. In fact, Tiny Roll Games, if you're watching, we need more because there's actually so many different combinations that you could need. But one of the things that you can do, and you'll see that I've got here, is have a few preset teams based around certain colours depending on who you're going to face. This is my red and black team with a little bit of Rory in there as well. This is my balanced team, which you saw earlier, because I do think it's important to have a couple of them knocking around. This was one I was experimenting with yesterday in the live stream using the brand new Sarah Jane character, mono yellow. So if I had a level where I knew most of the enemies were going to be black, then this might be an interesting, albeit risky one to bring along. And then I've got a blue-black team in 4, and I've got a almost mono-blue team in 5. But the point is, what I'm saying is that you can have different team setups for different enemies, different colours that you're going to be facing. Just because you try something out doesn't mean, of course, you have to keep it, but it's worth. Don't just use the same team over and over again. Experiment. Try 3 colours instead of 5. If you can, then maybe use 2 colours instead of 5. I mean, 1 is risky, but I've been using this team here right in front of you with red, black, and a little bit of green very, very successfully. I'm almost halfway through season 7 now, and this team rarely loses, and I've never missed blue, and I've never missed yellow, but that equally opposite designs could work as well. So use those 5 different team slots, set them up for taking on different types of enemies, and on top of that, it's also just a great excuse to use a load of those other characters as well. Okay, now I think I've mentioned this in a previous video, but there's a convention in kind of MMO, mass multiplayer online games, that there are basically 3 character classes with little variations here and there. Tanks, which are the characters that have huge healths, healers, which are the characters that heal the rest of the party, and damage or attackers, which are the ones that actually kill the enemies. Now, Doctor Who Legacy actually works more or less the same way. You've got certain characters, if I click on Porridge here, that are clearly tanks. They're the ones that provide huge amounts of health to your team. Look at that HP there, 979, 289, 75. You know, massive strength on the health. There are other characters that are clearly designed to be the healers. Step forward, Dr. Rory. Although it actually looks like his healing ability is slightly lower than his HP there, that is actually a huge healing rating. The healing is always lower than the other ones, and some characters, if we kind of click around, if I just kind of go towards, look, 7, 53, 26, he's a level 19 character and his healing is only 22, so actually Rory having healing of 277 and Strax is another one on 304. These are your healers. And then there's other characters which are specialists in attack, for example Spoonhead Doctor there, 532 attack, or even good old trusty K9 with an attack of 633. The point that I'm trying to make here is that when you are putting your team together, don't forget those kind of character classes. And I was trying to think when I'm putting a team together, right, okay, I need a tank, at least one. I need a healer, at least one. I need an attacker, at least one. And then the other two classes are kind of up for grabs a little bit. I could kind of say, well, do I now want an all-round character, perhaps someone like someone like Amy Pond, or do I actually, am I a bit concerned about that I might need more health here, so maybe I could bring along Churchill as well as a second tank, or maybe actually I want to do even more damage, so I could bring along Madame Vasta as another attack character. But the point is, I'm not just shoving characters in based on their colours, although that's very important too. I think that's where we start, but I'm also chucking them in based on their classes as well. So I always make sure I end up with a balanced team, and by a balanced team I don't mean that every character has even stats. A balanced team, I mean you've got all of those character classes covered, your tanks, your attackers, and your healers there as well. And then, and I'll be talking about this more in a more advanced tutorial, you have the freedom to change it up if things go wrong. So let me give you an example. So let's have a look at my the team I showed you earlier to see how this kind of works in action. I've got Rory, who's my healer, I've got K9, who's my attacker, and I've got Porridge, who's my tank. So there's my three classes. And I've put Jenny in, who's an all-rounder, and I've put Strax in, who's another healer. But supposing I attempt to level, and I get one of those bad guys that just wipes you out in one shot, or like three bad guys that all attack at the same time and they wipe me out in one go. Well, I've got no opportunity to heal there. So one of the things I could then start to think is, well actually I need another tank. I actually need higher health overall. So what I could do there is swap out one of the healing characters, maybe take out Strax, and put in someone else that's got high health, maybe someone like Churchill or something like that. Or supposing you find the enemies are just really tough, there's a spaceship level right at the beginning of year 7 that takes ages to take down, so maybe I just need to do more damage. So I could take out Jenny, I could take out Strax, maybe replace them with someone that hits a bit harder like Spoonhead Doctor. But some of you have asked in the comment sections on my videos, well, why am I specialising characters? Why aren't I just making everyone an all-rounder? And this is the reason why. So the idea is that I can constantly see what the level requires and swap in specialised characters to fill the void. Because if you make everyone an all-rounder and you find you're failing a level because you just haven't got enough health or you haven't got enough firepower, you've got nowhere to go because you're actually just replacing like with like, apart from the kind of colour changes, I understand. But if you're specialising your characters, if you need to, you can put in a team which is all based around damage, or likewise, if you're finding you're dying too fast, you can up the healing and you can up the tank side as well. Well, my friends, there is still loads more to tell you. I actually have an entire text file full of all the tips I want to share with you, but our next stage of our journey is complete. If you have enjoyed it or found it useful, then please give the video a like, and don't forget, if you are watching this video in the first week of its release, I have a time crystal giveaway going on as well. Head over to the front page of my channel and have a look for details of how you can get some free time crystals from me. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook, and generally stalk my house as well. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.